Hi, this is Jeff Barron. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to call the Project Renovation Building Committee's regular meeting to order. Mr. Barron, would you please take the roll call?
Yes, members are asked to signify their presence when I call your name. Councilor Bedrejko?
Here.
Councilor Minor?
Here.
Mr. Claffey?
Here.
Mr. Mortensen?
Here.
Mr. Murtha?
Here.
Mr. Woods?
Here.
Mr. Harpy?
Here.
You have a quorum. And I'm reminding members that this meeting is being recorded and speakers are asked to identify themselves each time they speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'll entertain a motion for approval of prior meeting minutes.
Like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
And who are you, please?
Ed Murtha.
Thank you.
And a second,
Second. Mortensen, second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion? So approved unanimously. Public participation. Any member of the public that is on, who would like to speak, please state your name and address.
Mr. Harpy, this is Paul Boutat. You do have one member on this meeting right now in the attendees. I will go ahead. Name is listed as Barbara. I will go ahead and unmute at this time.
Hello?
Oh, 1 minute.
Okay.
The member is using an older version of the software for Zoom, and we cannot unmute them at this time. So they are inside our queue. I'm being informed by the Zoom application that they're not able to talk because using an older version of Zoom. I can promote the person to a panelist, at which time I can bring them in, and then I can bring them back out to the attendees. So if you have no objections, I will bring them in as a panelist so that they can speak.
Paul, I'm on a phone, but I'm not able to use my speaker phone without muting, and therefore I cannot record this meeting.
Okay, is she on now?
Okay, I am promoting that person to a panelist. Let me find them inside.
Paul, did you hear Jeff's comment regarding recording?
Yes, we started a recording behind the scenes now that I was made aware of that. Wasn't aware at the beginning. Okay, the caller has not responded to my efforts to make them a person that can speak right now. We brought them into the meeting, but they have not commented, so I don't know if they're having any problems with audio at this point.
Okay, did her phone number get recorded?
There is no phone number on there as far as it comes up as a name, so they're using a Zoom application at which time they name it.
Okay, well, we'll move on and give her an opportunity later on the agenda. Project update, Downs. Are you there, Frank?
Frank was having an issue with participating in the meeting. He evidently lost his instructions or wasn't able to find them on his computer. So I had asked him to contact Paul Boutat, and it sounds like he's in now.
Yep. Can everybody hear me okay?
Okay.
Yep.
You're on for the project update, Frank.
Okay. I see the update now in front of me. All right. So looking at the financial snapshot, beginning of the agenda here from the last committee meeting that was held about a month ago. In terms of approved changes, we've got 638,676.55. That would bring our revised contract value to $28,399,665.55. Between the pending and approved changes that we've compiled so far, that totals $51,704.55. Of that $51,704.55, we have roughly $40,000 in COPs that we're planning to present this evening, and I'll go through that breakdown with you a little bit later. So if you factor in the pending and approximate changes on top of what's already been approved, that would adjust our GMP value to $28,451,370.10. Within the CM contingency from the last committee meeting, our CM contingency in terms of the approved cost brings that total to $261,622.30. The pending contingency requests in the queue right now total $35,867.09. That would leave us with $534,319.61 in the CM contingency. Taking a look at the owner's contingency, after reconciling with the town back at the end of January, we started with $868,405. Based on the amount that's approved, deducting that, the $638,676.55, and then factoring the pending amount that I'm presenting this evening and costs that we are currently working through with subcontractors. Between those two amounts, the $40,438.95, the approximate cost of $11,265.60 would reduce the owner's contingency to $178,023.90. That represents roughly 80% spent out of the owner's contingency. In terms of billings through the end of March, just so everybody knows, we are about 66% complete in terms of the billing, and that's through March 31st. And we're working through another billing cycle, as you guys are aware, for April at this point, which will probably bring us in around 72 to 73% complete through the end of April. In terms of soft costs, again, I'm not tracking anything against soft costs, but we always showed that we were starting with $1,706,810. Our total project budget cost, factoring everything above, totals $30,336,204. Does anybody have questions on that before I get into the schedule update?
Yeah, Tom Arcari. Frank, you said we're about 66% of the total project complete right now. That's the total GMP. What percentage of the building project would you say we are complete? Meaning the site work and demo has a value of approximately $3 million, correct?
Correct.
So if you pull the site work and demo out, obviously that's a real project, but where would you say we are in completion of the building?
I would say on a percentage basis, we're between 80 and 85% complete.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Frank, if I could.
Questions on that item?
Somebody's dog has a question.
Yeah, yeah, you can hear the dogs getting angry. Question I've got, Frank, is it's April. You and I talked last month and you said there was a possibility of maybe doing some further releases. Any numbers crunched on that yet to see if you can do that?
We are almost there. I am taking a harder look at the allowances that we held in the GMP for the winter work, specifically the temp heat equipment. It looks like we've got some unspent money there that we can reconcile and give back to the town. There was a couple other miscellaneous winter weather items within the allowances. We're getting ready to, spring is finally upon us, and we're getting ready to prep Mazzicoli Way. And in terms of, inside the building, we're in final finishes. So I do need to, talk with my office and see what we're comfortable with giving back. So let's revisit that at the next meeting. I promise you guys I'll come to the table with a figure that we're comfortable with, and we can discuss it at that time.
This is Tom Arcari again. Just want to point out, if you look at the pending construction change order proposals, there's 40,000 this month, but as we've gotten closer to the end of the project, that number is trending downwards. So even though the owner's contingency is at 178, and we'll, expect some matriculation in transfers, as we close the building out, the PCOs, or at least any unforeseen PCOs, should be dropping significantly.
This is Joe Harpy. So roughly we have about 714,000 in change between the owner's contingency and the manager's contingency as a total. My question is, if we're 80% finished with the building, obviously the majority of that must be the interior of the building, but yet isn't the largest piece of the next cost the taking down of the existing town hall? And can we feel comfortable that we've got enough bogey in the contingency at this point if anything unusual arises in the demolition area?
Well, like I've said before in previous meetings, we do have some allowances bolted onto the original GMP to deal with some of the potential unforeseen abatement issues we may run into inside the existing town hall. But I feel comfortable, knowing that we've got roughly $500,000 in CM contingency. And to Tom's point, you can see from the numbers when we get through the pending and approximate values and drill down on the number of changes that we are on the down slope in terms of, getting over that change order hump. But I feel like we've gotten over it, and it's represented by the amounts at this point.
If you look at from the perspective that you'll be billing to 70% complete at the end of the month, that puts about $8.5 to $9 million of work yet to be billed, with approximately $700,000 in contingency, and then allowances in the demo phase. There's almost 10% in contingency. So I would say that to have that much in contingency at this point, 2/3 of the way through the project, that puts us in a good position.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Go ahead, Frank, please.
Can I just ask one question? And I'm not sure whether this is the place to bring it up or not, but
Identify yourself, Gail.
oh, Gail Bedraco. Last time we had talked about, or you had mentioned that there might be some impact due to the COVID-19. And thank goodness it doesn't look like construction has to be stopped. But do you anticipate any additional cost or issues?
I definitely want to address the COVID issue. I anticipated this coming up, obviously, with everything going on right now. There's no way, we can't not address it. So I do want to address it, but let me get through the schedule and go over the progress that we've made so far, and then I want to come back to that.
Okay,
and
great.
go over,
thank you.
Some of the things related to that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so let's talk about schedule. I'll give you a snapshot of work that's behind us finally, some of the stuff that is currently in progress, and then I'll give you a 3 to 4 week look ahead on what's to come. So starting with the work that's been completed so far at the Newington Town Hall, more recently in the last 4 weeks or last time we met, we've been able to switch over now to permanent power. So we no longer rely on the temporary service that was feeding the building. We've energized. We have a meter set, and we've actually energized permanent light fixtures on the second floor. Last time we met, I think I had showed you some photos of the gymnasium. At that time, we were just prepping for slab placement. And since then, we've placed the slab on grade. In fact, we've got guys working off of that slab now doing a bunch of overhead work. Within the community center, we've made some really good headway there. We've had a bunch of carpenters working inside the community center, and they have finished all of the interior framing for all of the offices and transition academy, daycare, art room, multi-purpose rooms, etc. On the first and third floor, again, a lot of progress. Drywall's done, taping's done. We've sanded, and at this point, we've got a painter staying very busy on the third floor. He pretty much has the first coat of paint applied on all the walls within the Board of Ed. And same goes for first floor and second floor. On the outside of the community center, in terms of that envelope at the community center, we have the sheathing on, the air vapor barrier has been applied. And at this point, we've got a little bit of cast stone left to do at the southeast corner of the community center where it dives into the gymnasium at the exterior stairway. So, like I mentioned, we've energized the second floor. We've installed light fixtures. We've had our above ceiling inspection for the second floor, and we've had ceiling tile delivered. So we're in a position now to pad out, we say pad out, I mean place ceiling tile in all of the ceiling grid on the second floor.
Everything just stopped.
Hello?
I'll be right back.
Hello?
What happened?
Everything just stopped.
Did you try calling back?
No.
Why not?
Well, I don't know what to do to get back in there.
Mute on if you're not talking, so we don't have
You gotta call back
background.
again then.
We can hear you, Jeff.
Okay. There's a lot of background noise right now.
Yeah. Go ahead, Frank.
Okay. So like I was saying, we've wrapped up the second floor in terms of the above ceiling work, and now with ceiling tile that showed up Monday, we are now tiling the second floor ceiling. Second floor bathroom, so we've got porcelain tile placed on the walls and the floors of the second floor bathrooms. The acoustical ceiling grid has also progressed on the first floor of the town hall. We're essentially complete there. And we've started ceiling grid on the third floor. In fact, I think he's got most of the offices along the west side of the third floor area. The vault, so the vault contractor, which is Firelock, they are basically wrapping up. They have demobilized as of today. The vault is fully constructed, so the vault panels are now all locked in place, all fully welded. The ceiling is on. There's a corrugated deck that goes on top of the vault. That's in place. And now we just have to fit out the interior of the vault. And that work is coming up shortly. In terms of the masonry veneer, the brick, we've got a crew still here. They're at the tail end of finishing masonry. Right now, they're set up on the gymnasium bump out, or the east side, which is closer to the library. They're almost at the top of the wall there now. I believe if they come in Friday, because Friday is a holiday for quite a few crews, if they come in, they can get most of it done. So by next week, we'll be pulling scaffolding down on that elevation, and then they'll be hopping over to the community center, like I was saying, to enclose the rest of the community center at the southeast corner with cast stone. The generator, if anybody has maybe driven by recently, they may have noticed the generator. It's not quite as big, I think, as everybody thought it was going to be, but it is set at its temporary location, and we'll put electricians on that soon to start wiring that. So that brings me to work in progress. Millwork has progressed on the second floor. That would be upper and lower cabinets, primarily the kitchenette cabinets. All of those are in on the second floor. We just started the third floor. I did this update on Monday. So some work has actually gotten further along than what I even anticipated. But we did start the base for cabinets on the 3rd floor today. The Roughen of the community center, so we decided based on the number of electrical changes within the town hall, we needed to augment the community center. The electricians have spent a lot of time to incorporate the electrical changes, as you know, from the changes I've presented in previous meetings, a lot of it related to electrical. We needed to regroup and decided to expedite Roughen, and we did that. Past couple weekends, we've had a crew of 7 to 8 electricians roughing in the community center. They made a lot of progress. We're at a point now where we're going to look for an inspection of the electrical come Monday, this coming Monday. That'll allow us to start closing up the walls within the community center. I mentioned the 3rd floor already as far as paint. We're at the tail end of the first coat on the 3rd floor. I mentioned the grid. We'll just keep going on grid. We have a number of offices completed. 1st floor bathrooms, we have a crew here, and they're finishing the gang bathrooms now on the 1st floor. They got a couple bathrooms left to do on the 1st floor. There's a couple small bathrooms outside the main electrical room. As soon as those are done, they'll hop up to the 3rd floor and get going on those. We have a glass and glazing crew here finishing the building envelope in terms of the aluminum storefront system and doorways along the community center. They're setting all of those now. They started to set some of the glass for the gym windows. That glass showed up today, so they started some of that work. We have 2 crews here from Acorn Glass working diligently to button up the envelope. We've placed concrete at the main entries, the east and west side of the town hall. We've set footings and foundation, and we're ready for steel. We've got ductwork here for the gymnasium. We have a mechanical crew working on the connector roof, setting the stands to support the ductwork. It's quite large for the supply and return that will come off the connector and feed into the gymnasium. We also have a mechanical crew going around the 1st and 2nd floor and extending flexible ductwork down into the ceiling grid for the supply and return air. Okay, so now we get to work that is on the horizon. Again, looking about 3 to 4 weeks down the road. Some of this is coming up pretty quick, but some of it's a little bit further out. I mentioned the vault already. We've got carpenters poised to get inside there now that the vault vendor has demobilized. We will begin to fur the walls so we can sheetrock the interior of that vault. It gets sheetrock around the entire perimeter, including the ceiling as well. The 3rd floor I mentioned, we're already on base for cabinets. We'll continue with that this week into next week. I mentioned the bathrooms. The porcelain tile will follow once the 1st floor bathrooms are complete. The steel for the main entries, there's a little bit of steel work left to do. We've got these little bump outs, if you will, at the east and west entrance of the town hall. We are trying to get the steel erector dialed in for the end of this week. He's coming out to look at the project tomorrow. If it's not the end of this week, it'll be early next week. There's probably a couple days worth of work there. There's not a lot of steel for those 2 entries. I mentioned the drywall in the community center. That looks like that'll be gearing up very shortly as soon as we get that electrical inspection. And then come the week of April 20th, we're planning to start moving air in the building. That means we're going to be starting up mechanical equipment to start moving air. We're still waiting for ceiling grid for the 1st floor. Just in the grand hall, that is a different type of ceiling system. We're waiting for that material. That's probably just a week or week and a half away. You know, we're keeping tabs on material at this point, making sure that, you know, we're monitoring any factories that may be shutting down due to COVID-19. And lastly, Mazzacoli Way, I mentioned the week of April 20th, we will have our site work contractor back. We talked about putting binder course down over the last couple meetings, and we're going to shift gears a little bit instead of putting the binder down, we want to start with the sidewalks. It's a monolithic pour with curbing. So we want to get that done first. And that looks like we're setting up to place that concrete the week of April 27th. And then somewhere after that, probably the first week of May, we would plan for the binder course along Mazzacoli Way. All right, so we get to critical items. So this is where I've got a little blurb here, the second bullet point regarding potential material and labor shortages due to COVID-19. So like I was saying, we've been keeping tabs on material. We've dodged a couple bullets so far. We've been lucky. With the brick for the project comes out of Pennsylvania, and at one point that factory had shut down. Needless to say, we did get some attorneys involved to talk to the governor of Pennsylvania. The brick was literally laying on the ground at the yard. We were able to get that brick loaded and delivered to the project in time, so there was no hiccup there. The mason crew just kept going with the veneer at the gym. So we dodged a bullet there. The ceiling tile, we get the ceiling tile from Pennsylvania. Luckily, we were able to dodge another bullet there. We got that material out of the factory in time before they scaled back on their crews there. And really, at this point, we want to just continue to watch specifically the general trade packages, the roller shades, the gym equipment, the telescoping stands. We're talking to all of those vendors at this point to make sure that they're still able to deliver material when we need it. So far, we haven't heard any negative feedback. The only issue that has come up so far that I know of is inside the vault, we have a dry chemical system in lieu of a wet pipe system for fire protection. That dry chem system is hooked up to a 600-pound tank, and that tank is not in production yet because the factory is currently shut down. The installation of that system is not a long duration by any stretch. It's probably a couple weeks. And to get to fabricate that tank is not a big deal. We're going to reevaluate that come May. They've told us that they're going to open up by the middle of May. So that doesn't, looking at the overall schedule, given the 2-week duration we need for install, that's not going to pose a problem for us either. At this point, the biggest challenge for us right now is making sure that obviously the workers are safe and the workers have a comfort level coming to this job, knowing that we're doing everything we can to try and protect the workers by sanitizing the job site, by increasing the frequency of cleaning within the temporary toilets. We've added a sanitizing station. We actually have running hot water on the first floor of the town hall. So it's really staying on top of that to ensure that we don't lose any worker, due to this virus. Now, luckily, we haven't had any worker, become ill or have signs or symptoms of the virus. We've only had a couple cases where workers are simply too nervous to come to the project just because of everything that they hear either on the news or talking to their buddies in the field. We've had a couple workers that have left the project for those reasons. So I've discussed briefly with Joe some additional precautionary measures we want to take. I've put together some numbers and basically to give you an idea of what these precautionary measures entail. It would be stationing somebody on a full-time basis over a 10-week period. Starting very soon, it would be a nurse or an EMT to monitor the temperature of every worker or visitor entering the job site. Monday through Friday, they would keep records of all of that. We feel that is a measure we should take. We're also looking at increasing the cleaning of the temporary toilets. We're cleaning them 2 times per week right now, but if you look at the CDC guidelines, we are right on the edge of meeting the minimum requirements. We would want to bump that up to 3 times a week. In terms of that cost, we already have an allowance carved out in the original GMP to address cleaning of the temporary toilets. So I think, knowing what's left in that allowance, I think we can cover that cost and come out of it so that I'm not coming back to the committee asking for a change order because we spent too much money on cleaning the temporary toilets. I think that's the least of our worries. Obviously, the cost of having an EMT or a nurse on site full-time, 40 hours a week for 10 weeks, that's a decent cost. I think I came up with an estimated value of about 14 or 15,000. I'm hoping that maybe through the town, some deal can be reached, maybe with somebody from the school system that's looking for work, that we could station somebody at the main gate of our site to do that. We've also reached out to a third-party vendor that specializes in sanitizing sites. You might see them at fitness centers where they come in and they spray and they sanitize every square inch of the building. I think at a minimum, we would want to do that. In fact, Downs has sort of stuck their neck out a little bit. We have already scheduled somebody to be here on Monday to do a application where they would come in, they would spray pretty much, like I said, every square inch of the building, all the floors, the walls, cabinets. They would spray workers' tools, gang boxes, etc. The cost of one application is roughly $1,300. It seems like a drop in the bucket, and if it can bring peace of mind to all of the workers here, knowing that we've got 65 to 75 workers here, I think it's money well spent, because we certainly want to keep everybody here and we want to keep everybody safe. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Yeah, this is Gail Vidraco. That site sanitation, would that be a daily or weekly or just a one-time deal?
Well, the sanitizing of like walls and floors, is that what you're referring to, that service?
Yeah, that last where you said they're going to come in and spray every inch of the building and the tools and whatever.
Right. So we have some options. Depending on what research you do on this product, when they go through and spray, it's supposed to last up to 30 days, but with the amount of traffic that building sees on a daily basis, you guys don't see it, but we certainly do. With 65 to 75 grown men walking around, bringing in mud and what have you, I don't think one application is enough. I think we could maybe start with one, but I think twice a week and just monitoring it would be more appropriate based on the circumstances.
And another follow-up, I know somebody who works at Lowe's, and every time they get a delivery, they are spraying it down or sanitizing. Is that going to be necessary as well? Any new materials that are coming in from now until whatever?
Well, the materials coming in will be part of that sanitizing process when we bring in this service to come through. Those materials would be incorporated as part of the entire sanitizing process, if you will.
So they would be stored until the next application? But I'm thinking of the daily stuff that comes in that I would imagine normally you use that day, but you're going to have to put them aside and wait until they get sanitized?
Yeah, a lot of the material that comes in, it's coming in because we're installing it. So the material, when it comes in, doesn't necessarily sit if it does sit, we've also, as part of that 1,300 figure I gave you, part of this deal would be for the sanitizing company to, walk into any connex that we have and spray down material that's been staged.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, it's Beth Del Buono. Frank, I'm just wondering if this is, I guess I'm trying to figure out, is this a town expense or is this a Downs expense? So in terms of protecting your own employees, the town is paying a lot to protect our employees. Does that fall under our realm or under the Downs realm?
Good question. I don't think anybody could have anticipated this, but, I realize that the budget is getting tight. And when you look at the overall cost to deal with this in terms of the precautionary measures, we're dealing with a pretty sizable, price tag. If it's something that needs to come out of CM contingency, then we can certainly be flexible to that.
I'm just wondering, Mr. Chair, this is Beth again. I'm wondering if we should have our town attorney just take a look at the contract to kind of see where we fall in terms of our responsibility for this type of expense.
Yeah, this is Joe Harpy. I made calls to all of you before the meeting, and I appreciate the sensitivity to the fact that you're just seeing it now. It was generated really today because of what the governor did through an executive order on stiffening up the requirements of construction sites, as well as Downs' concerns about other issues. So I would agree that I think the sanitation, if there were the spraying of the chemical to sanitize the entire building should be done now. I agree with that. And I think Downs has said they're going to go ahead and get a leap of faith here, I guess, and go do it. And I think your points are very well made, Mayor, that we have to consider who's going to do what on pricing and cost and how we can collaboratively work this number down and work it together to deliver the same benefits to the subs there and to any visitors that may come to the site. So I did advise Downs that we wouldn't be acting on this evening, and he's agreeable to that. He doesn't see it that it creates that much harm. So I think this will give us an opportunity to, I think several of you, and I know you did discuss this with me, Mayor, possible FEMA money coming in to offset some of this. And that was only fair to the committee to have a chance to evaluate not only the quality of what we're doing and understanding the safeguard of people's lives, we're all for that, but how we're going to adjust the payments and to make sure it becomes a reality. So that said, we'll not going to act on this one.
This is Tom Arcari. Just a little information. We're currently dealing with this with Hartford Healthcare. Hartford Healthcare is paying upwards of 30 cents a square foot to sanitize the spaces. So the $1,300 price tag sanitize essentially 70,000 square feet of work area is a no-brainer. It really averts a lot of risk and helps present a safe workplace. I really wouldn't think twice about spending $5,000. Realistically, this cost is not something that anything Downs Construction Company ever could have anticipated in their bid or budget original contract amount. It really is a force majeure issue. I do think it's worthwhile talking to the town attorney about, but it's a tiny cost, and it seems to make good sense all conditions present. As far as the nurse goes, I've never encountered something like that on a project. I don't think it's a bad idea, but that's a bigger price tag, and certainly that's something you guys could potentially talk about.
Yeah, just to clarify, this is Beth again. I just want to clarify. I'm not questioning that $1,300, to be honest.
Sure.
That makes a ton of sense. It's the the ongoing staffing of a nurse that I would be more interested in kind of pursuing as a discussion.
Yeah, and again, like I said, we are open to discussion. You know, my take within the confines of the contract, I would certainly classify this as no different than any other unforeseen condition that we encounter on the project. So it's certainly an unforeseen condition which would entitle us to a change order. So that's my take, but we can talk some more about it.
I
There
think,
There is one other way, sorry, Joe, Tom or Carrie, one other way to look at it is Downs Construction has expended dollars out of their CM contingency to facilitate the schedule throughout the project, i.e. examples of that are paying extra fees for overtime. So contractors will work on Sunday to make sure the project stays on schedule or ahead of schedule. You could look at this from the perspective of if this avoids a project shutdown, that certainly facilitates the schedule. So this is an expense that might facilitate expedition of the project schedule.
yeah, Joe Harpy, I think, Frank, you had scheduled or budgeted for 15 visits of the sanitizing team at 1,300, which is about 19 grand. So I'm not saying that the committee's not going to agree to do some things, but since you're going to go forward with the sanitizing thing, which we agree with, that'll give, in fairness to the committee members, an opportunity to digest it like they do all change orders, and opportunity to see what FEMA and other areas that were suggested about a possible idle nurse from the school system looking for an opportunity that might work in our favor.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, again, when I came up with these dollar figures, I based it on a 10-week period. Listen, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but you know, everything that we've seen and read so far, we know that it could potentially get worse, and this could be an ongoing thing through the end of May, maybe longer. But you know, I took 10 weeks, and I felt like that was legitimate. That seemed reasonable, and that's how that was the basis of those costs.
Okay, well, we appreciate your efforts on this. Mr. Mortensen, did you have a question? Did I hear you?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that, you know, I would leave it to the experts that there's no question that we want to make every effort we can to make this site safe. And I 1,000% agree with doing the spray sanitation. I would have to defer to the experts, but as a layperson, I don't know about, and again, the end result is you want to keep all the workers and people who visit the site safe, but I would need a little more explanation, the reasoning behind keeping a nurse there all day long. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on that. And if it, you know, was proven that that's absolutely what you would have to do, I would be in favor of it. But the sanitation and the spraying, I actually have to commend Downs for going ahead right away and at least getting the process started, because you want to do every single thing you can, just like we are all doing, from staying 6 feet apart, sanitizing your hands, washing your hands, wearing masks, et cetera. And I just had a quick comment on that. I don't know, Frank, if upon the recommendations, of course, we're all getting different ways and things to do from different people, but it does seem now that the whole mask issue is at least somewhat effective. My question regarding it would be probably in this area to ask it is, are you having or recommending to the guys and girls, women who are working there to wear any kind of face protection?
Yes. And again, the whole discussion around whether to wear a mask or not wear a mask, it is a recommendation. It's not a mandatory requirement, but it is something that we promote on the job site. But again, we do have workers that prefer not to, and some go to the, you know, the other end of the spectrum, and they have the gloves on and mask on, and we encourage that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Joe,
thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, Anthony.
Yes.
One question.
Anthony Coffey, yes.
Anthony Claffey here. Frank, question regarding the COVID and under your bullet point number 3, work to start, you talk about mechanical equipment startup. Is there any ill effect to starting any of the mechanicals with the COVID and the air movement and all that? No potential need to maybe push that back to try to get a better grasp, or is that something we're discuss later?
It's actually just the opposite, Anthony.
Okay.
With the current CDC and the DECD recommendations that came out today, they're encouraging facilities to ramp up their fresh outside air.
Mr. Minor, would you just, this is Chris Minor speaking.
Sorry, Chris Minor. Sorry, Anthony. But that was something that was addressed in the recommendations as of today. And the other question I had for Frank is...
It doesn't answer my question, but go ahead.
All right, Anthony, if you had, go ahead, Anthony. I'll be right back. Go ahead, finish your... Sorry,
I guess my question is, with ramping it up and systems are in place, the different filters, et cetera, do we have other costs associated, because we will be monitoring the air differently with the fresh air and all the systems running? Are there, when you start to turn over the building, in a normal time without the COVID concern, it was like, okay, the building's been operational for 6 months, we turn it over, the town takes, gets all the mechanical documents, the, building people get in place. Is there anything with the system due to the COVID now that we might have to add additionally to, you're talking about throwing all these chemicals through, and I know they're all for good, but can there be some back end effects due to, different filters need to get changed out quicker, air filters, et cetera? And that was, parlay to what Chris has said, I agree with him, but is there any other backdoor effects like, hey, this system comes with, let's just hear me out, 10 air filters, but they have to replace every 6 months. And if you're turning it on in the next week or two, not that that's when you're turning it on, but does that quicker than originally planned, or are we on schedule so that when we turn the building over, it's turned over and without needed expense or change due to the modifications to sanitation, et cetera?
I mean, honestly, Anthony, this, for like a lot of us, this is the first time for me. This is uncharted, territory. It's a very good question. I will say that, before we turn on any system, yes, we have proper filter media in place to filter the air. The guys aren't breathing in dirty air or anything like that. Whether or not we need to take additional measures to monitor the air or treat the air differently because of COVID-19, I've got to do some research on that and get back to you.
Thank you, Frank. Just something to think about as we start to get in and out of this building more and more. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Mr.
Joe. Joe, Don Woods.
Yes, Don.
Just a thought. One of our job sites regarding the nurse, you have to be at the job site, we'll say at 7 o'clock, whatever the start time is. There is a nurse there taking your temperature. And if you have a temperature or not, you're not allowed on the site. If you come to the site late, you're not allowed to work. So I don't know if that would work for Frank or not, but that seems like a lot cheaper than having somebody stand there all day. Just a thought.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gail Badraco, I have a question, kind of piggybacking on what Mr. Woods and previous speakers had said regarding if the purpose of the healthcare professional, the nurse, is just to take a temperature, I think that there might be lower level, lower certified healthcare professionals that are capable of doing that, or like a CNA or something, number one. And then number two, you're saying that this individual would be taking temperatures for visitors, all day long. So I think they would have to be more than just like a half hour in the morning or whatever. if visitors and contractors are coming in and out all day long. But I'm not quite certain a fully registered, LPN or RN is necessary if all the intent is to take a temperature.
Okay, yeah, again, I agree with you. I just don't think it should be, a superintendent trying to take somebody's temperature, but somebody from the medical arena that meets the minimum requirements to administer that type of thing. So I'm open to suggestions. This was, again, I had just created this, again, just trying to get in front of this and doing what I think is right, not just for the job, for our company, for the workers, for everybody, for people walking by the project who are also concerned for the project, so I'm open to suggestions.
Mr. Chair, if you would.
Okay, moving right along. Go ahead, Frank.
Okay, Joe. So moving right along, looking at the COPs that we have teed up for this evening for review and vote by the committee, starting with COP 82. That is a $0 change. That is a cost coming out of the CM contingency, and that basically entails reworking the slab-on grade so that we could reconfigure plumbing to accommodate a floor-mounted toilet to meet the child-sized toilet requirements within the daycare. That's a $0 change, CM contingency. Next item is COP 135. We had to make some adjustments. We increased the overall area of the mailroom. We eliminated, I believe there was an adjacent room. We took a wall down that separated I believe it was a storage room from the mailroom to create this larger mailroom. So that entailed moving some electrical. There were some utility adjustments. We had to, because we were pretty far along in the process of build out for that space, we had to demo some ductwork. In fact, we haven't demoed it yet. We have to demo some ductwork. There's going to be new supply ductwork that has to feed that space now, and that's what that entails. COP 136, the canopy drain modifications. So this is the main entrance at the east side of the building. We had to reconfigure drain piping so that it would dump outside the canopy along the east side of the building in lieu of running piping inside the building. And this change is really twofold. The other change, we had looked at evaluating some drains. Sorry, I'm hearing a loud piercing noise coming through the phone. Okay, there were some drains, some sidewall drains. We had looked at reworking the piping of those. We went through some coordination. There's some coordination time involved here to reevaluate those side drains at the canopies along the community center. That's $2,688. COP 144, this is a $0 change. There's some costs here to deal with control wiring for the coiling grills that was not originally specified. However, we've got some funds available to us within that general trades credit. We tapped into that to cover the cost of this. So it's a $0 change, no increase to the GMP. COP 145, the next one has to do with monitoring the generator through the building management system. This is to monitor the generator in its permanent location through the BMS. The temporary location will be monitored, but not through the BMS. It will be monitored remotely from the annunciator panel. That is $12,903. COP 160 is dealing with the assessor's office, which is on the first floor of the town hall along the west side. There was a closet. The town had asked for us to leave the walls off the closet, remove the door frame, create an open space to accommodate a couple copiers, and the cost of that is $3,648.34. Most of the cost is to deal with the utilities, adding dedicated circuits for the copiers, and we've got a couple, I believe we've got 4 data cables that also go to that location. 168 is to get power to smoke dampers not originally specified between the 2nd and 3rd floor for $4,618.83. 169 is to get a separate feed for the mechanical unit, a dedicated outdoor air unit 1A on the roof for $2,406.94. We need that feed for internal mechanisms on that unit that was not originally specified. COP 170 is to get control wiring to the VAV units. There's 37 of them. And after I did some research on this, it turns out that we had a scope gap between contractors for this work, and therefore it is a CM contingency item, $0, no increase to the GMP. COP 175 is to work a small crew on overtime to wrap up the sheathing at the community center. Looks like I got a spelling error. That should be the east side. That's $0. 176, the next item is to eliminate drop ceilings. We had drop ceilings originally in data rooms on the 1st floor. That's not necessarily conducive to a data room environment, so we eliminated those drop ceilings. There's 2 rooms we're talking about on the 1st floor. We took those out, so there is an additional cost now to tape the walls all the way to the deck, and then the priming and painting associated with that, including painting the exposed decking for $3,914.34. COP 177 is a small change to add a soffit to deal with utilities that hung down a little bit lower than what we had originally anticipated. We had to create a soffit to deal with that condition. I believe that's on the 2nd floor. That's $551.75. 178 is to credit back. If anybody remembers, we went a couple rounds with flagpole brackets. We ended up going with a custom design for the flagpole brackets. So this is to credit back the original ones that we had owned based on the original GMP. And also the flagpole vendor, unfortunately, is backing out on the labor to set the flagpoles. We will have to deal with that. My thought is we get the steel erector involved, and when we set the steel for the main entrance at the west side of the building, we can set those flagpoles. And those flagpoles, by the way, just showed up last night. They are currently in storage in our laydown area behind our trailer. So that credit is $2,290. The next COP is 185. Because we've added some toilet partitions within the entries of the bathrooms on the 3rd floor, based on the ANSI specifications, and Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's an ANSI spec that we have to comply with. We had to rotate the door frames that unfortunately were already installed. We had to rotate those, remove and replace and tape sheetrock on the 3rd floor. That was $2,390.16. 186, I mentioned this in my schedule update. This was to expedite a crew of electricians to complete the Roughen at the community center. This was on Saturday, March 30th. I'll have another one coming up to present to you that is being taken out of CM contingency for this past Saturday. And then, I'm not sure if it's on this list, it may be. We would like to work a crew this weekend coming this Saturday to get a jump now in the gymnasium. There's quite a bit of wiring there to do for the gym equipment, the telescoping stands, and so forth. So we feel that that would be money well spent to stay on top of this schedule. The next item is 187, additional metal angle support. So this is the roof fascia that wraps the perimeter of the town hall and the gymnasium. If you guys recall from way back during the value management process, we saved some money by eliminating a continuous piece of fascia that sat on top of the parapet walls at the town hall and the gym. We scaled back on the profile of that fascia, but in doing so, with everything that goes on the face of the brick, you've got framing and plywood, and you've got that cornice material. Looks like crown molding. If anybody's seen the building lately, looks like crown molding. When you take all of those materials into account, we had to now make a provision to add material on the backside of this fascia, roof fascia, to properly support it to the roof and ensure that we can meet the warranty requirements for the roofing system. So that's $7,585.97. That's the shop labor to fabricate the angles, and then I believe it's 2 or 3 days of labor to install it. COP 188, again, a contingency item. It's to deal with the fence. Unfortunately, because we have such a small alleyway, if you will, to get trucks up and down, we had a couple issues where we had a crane come in. We had to move the fence to physically get the crane in place to set mechanical equipment. So a lot of the cost in this contingency is to deal with that, but it is a CM contingency, so there's no increase to the GMP. When you factor all these, I've got 17 COPs here above. The total is $40,438.95, and that's what we're looking to get approved this evening.
Are there any questions of Frank on that? Frank, Joe, Harpy, I had a question on 145, monitoring for generator.
Sure.
What are exactly we talking about again there? Is that the test that we're going to conduct, or?
No, the load bank test is something that we're already providing as part of our base bid contract, Joe. This would give you the ability to monitor the generator through the building management system when we install the generator in its final resting place.
I see, okay.
Which you know is where the existing town hall is right now.
Right. Okay, and I'd like, Tom, are you still here? Tom?
Yep.
Did you review the calculated genset percentage loaded, which was originally at 87%, I believe, which was a concern to the people in IT that this thing was maxed out, and that they wouldn't have capacity to do some other things, and they may be forced into looking at a smaller generator. And I understand that you've looked at again today in terms of where that all works out. Is that correct?
That is correct. We looked at another option. So just to clarify, so right now, all the elements that are on the generator use 87% of the generator's capacity.
Did you mute yourself?
Yes.
Hello?
Any better?
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
All right. Sorry, thank you. So the generator itself, everything that's on the generator uses by calculation 87% of the generator's capacity. The recommendation is to be in the range of 82%. The engineers indicate that realistically, the actual load on the generator is going to be less than 87% because not everything is used and plugged in all at once. Not every single microwave will be running at the same time. That's just an example. So to determine the actual load on the generator, the realistic, the median load on the generator, you can't determine that until we do the 4-day testing to get a feel for what the general loading is, to establish the mean. Then we can identify if there's actual additional capacity. But from a calculation perspective, there was some concern that we were at 87% as opposed to the threshold of 82%. So we looked at the viability of taking the gym RTU off the generator essentially that means there would be no heating, cooling in the gym. When the generator is running, there's a huge load associated with that RTU. It's about 12% of the total load. So if we back that RTU off the generator, that brings us to 75% of calculated load. The actual load will be below that. So we have the capacity to get below the calculated load of 82% and create additional threshold space for IT without doing anything. However, it's my team's professional recommendation that we hold on any of these decisions until we do the actual generating testing.
Yeah, I think it was more focused on the cooling wouldn't be there if we made the adjustment in the.
That's correct. I'm sorry.
So, does that satisfy IT's concerns? Paul, are you still there?
I'm here. I just turned my video on. I'm just doing the technical part of the meeting.
Okay.
But I guess my question to Mr. Arcari would be that 87% only represents approximately 25% of items in the building that are actually tied to the generator. Is that correct?
Well, the 87% load includes everything in the building except 3/4 of the lighting. About 25% of the lighting is on the generator, and then there's no cooling on the generator. At this point in time, I believe, I don't want to misspeak, but I believe most of the IT has now been added to the generator, and that's what got us to 87%. So the two items that are left to essentially add to the generator would be the remainder of the lighting or some of the lighting, as well as all of the cooling. Oh, and then there was one other thing. Currently, the building on the generator, there's about approximately 200 power outlets, electrical outlets on the generator. So you could potentially add some more power circuits if you create more space.
So Paul Bouchard again. So currently, would it be safe to say that if we lost power and the generator was on, we would be running probably, say, less than 30% of the building would be protected or supported by generator power?
No, I don't know what the actual calculation is, because the only thing that wouldn't be on the generator, again, would be air conditioning. It would be 75% of the lighting and a portion of the electrical outlets. I don't know what that percentage is, and I don't know what the I don't have a percentage for you, Paul. I'd have to have the engineer tell you exactly what percentage of the total building load is being picked up by the generator.
Okay, and I think I had sent an email out to your company along with a bunch of other people on the last one where we had communicated to try to get some written responses to our questions. And you received that?
I did receive that, thank you. And my engineers have that, and they're working on that.
Thank you.
Okay, and Frank, I just wanted to go back to, well, maybe I haven't touched it yet, but or maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, because you're going to talk about the rejected CLPs, or you want to take a question on that now?
You want to just get through the ones for approval
sure.
and take the vote?
Are there any other questions on the CLPs for review and approval?
Joe Harpy, Anthony Claffey.
Yes, Mr.
So
Swift.
let me ask you this, you talked about monitoring for the generator. What was your overall concern? Is it the 12,000 to approve or not approve? Do you want to take that out and table it?
No, that's for the monitoring system. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Back to a conversation on the overall capacity concerns on the part of IT, and I just wanted to address those this evening.
Okay, just wanted to clarify my own mind on 145.
Go ahead, Frank. Anything else to tell us on that?
No, that's it. Just
I'll entertain a motion for approval of the COPs just reviewed totaling $40,438.95.
Ed Martha, I'd like to make a motion that we accept them.
Is there a second?
Second,
Any discussion?
Second, excuse me, who made the second, please?
Chris Minor.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimously approved. Okay, Frank,
Yeah.
back to you.
Okay, all right, so the last list here is stuff, again, that we're working on. I do have a few here, if possible. I'd like to get a verbal approval. I've got a few here. 158, I've vetted with the design team. They're comfortable processing this just because of the timing and the number of changes that I've had to process. I couldn't get to this one, but this 158 has to do with additional power needs to get to the top of the shaft of the elevator. Because of the type of elevator we have, it's necessary. And we do have the elevator I mentioned coming the week of, the first week of May, hopefully, but we've got to get this power in place. So that's 15,064.05. 189, in order to meet the state inspection for the vault, we need to change the floor finish within the vault. It's originally specified as VCT. It cannot stay as VCT. They will accept sealed concrete. So to change the material from VCT to sealed concrete would be a cost of $1,789. If possible, I'd like to get a verbal approval on that. That's been vetted with the design team in Colliers. The next item is COP 191. Due to the number of electrical changes, we have a panel, NLCC, which is a normal power panel within the community center. Because of the electrical changes, the original panel specified it no longer has enough capacity. This cost, the $2,676, would be to simply get a larger panel. There is no labor charge on this. It's simply to call the factory, get a larger panel, but I need to push this and get a verbal if possible, because there is a lead time to get this panel, and it's at least 2 to 3 weeks. The other changes I can drop back now and start at the top of the list.
Can I ask
Sure,
asking?
sorry.
Frank, Anthony Claffey,
Yes, Anthony.
can we dive in a little bit on the COP 158 of,
Sure.
was this discussed? I'm pretty sure it was discussed prior, and I'm just trying to more track it of the original design. And was there a change to needing more power for this elevator? Was the elevator changed? Just bring me up to speed on that again.
Yeah, so through, if I recall, through the value management process, we changed the type of elevator to be this traction, machine roomless elevator type system. And through that process, unfortunately, the documents didn't get tweaked enough to make provisions for power at the top of the shaft, because we had this change in type of elevator system. So that's why we have this cost now out there.
So was the original, so the original elevator was, say, elevator A. We valued engineer to go with B, but to go with the better value engineer, it's going to cost us $15,000 more.
Unfortunately, yes, but there was, there's really a net add. If you want to take into account the value management, it's a net add of about 7,000, I believe. I'd have to go back and look at the original value management.
We saved money on the change, but I just want people to understand that, yes, we're spending 15, but I just trying to understand if we spend enough to save enough. You know what I'm saying?
One of the other reasons, sorry, Tom Arcari, one of the other reasons we changed to the tractionless or machine roomless traction elevator was it saved us the construction of a machine room. So the building realized about an 80 square foot reduction in that we didn't have to build an 8x10 machine room. So that also contributed to the there were more decisions associated with changing the type of elevator than just getting a slightly cheaper elevator.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're looking at the overall big picture of why we did the change to this, wanting it to us to, verbally release a $15,000 bill. Thank you both.
Thanks, Anthony. All right, so I'll jump back up to the top of the list here. The number 34 that's at the top for general trade work, again, a savings. It's hanging out until we get through the rest of the packages, and we're basically into finishes now. So over the next few months, that's all we're gonna pretty much focus on, is getting the rest of these general trades hopefully here and get everything installed so that we can accommodate the move-in come the middle of July. 154, so that is something that is still with the design team. I believe DTC is in receipt of some survey information pretty recently, and now they're working through some drawings, is my understanding, for an additional fiber optic loop around the building. Until I see drawings, I can't put a price tag on this. It's hard for me to quantify at this point. 166 is a back charge. That work is done, by the way. That's an internal cost, though. The town does not pay for that. That was essentially a screw up on somebody's part, and that's something we deal with internally. 173 is to add, I believe it's 16 sleeves recessed in the gym floor for badminton courts. This is a request from Parks and Rec. Unfortunately, I'm still chasing down the vendor that would be responsible to furnish the sleeves for the badminton court. I haven't been able to contact him, but we came up with a rough order of magnitude there of $6,876. 179, Chris O'Neill, if you're there, I know we talked about this too. We were discussing whether or not we needed to add an expansion joint along the ceiling between the community center and the gymnasium. That would be on the west and south side of the community center. Chris, I believe you came back, you consulted with DTC and concluded that this is no longer required. Is that still the case?
That's correct, Frank. It's Chris O'Neill. Yeah, we don't put that COP to add the expansion joint.
Okay, so we can void this from our budget, right? So that's roughly $7,000 coming off of the $11,265. So that's good. I'll go ahead and void that. COP 181, we're still working through that. We've got some floor boxes within the council chambers that do not have power. They have data, but no power. We need to add power, obviously, to accommodate those boxes. Rough order of magnitude there would be $5,290. I mentioned the winter weather allowances earlier. I've got a rough order of magnitude pegged for a couple of these with a credit of about $5,000. And with everything that's been going on, honestly, with COVID-19, it's taken up a lot of my time. But I promise I'll refocus on this, guys, and get back to you with some more credits, taking a harder look at the winter weather allowances. 183 is to deal with some duct detectors that bolt onto the ductwork that feed the gymnasium. We don't have weatherproof enclosures currently on within the plans. This would be to add weatherproof enclosures. It would be a less expensive solution than reconfiguring ductwork inside the gym to mount these duct detectors inside the gym. The rough order of magnitude here is $7,406. 184 is another back charge. This is between the roof screen vendor and the roofer. I am working that out between the two contractors. That's an internal cost. Went over 189 already. 190, that's to add a bedpan cleanser for the Transition Academy. We have a service sink basically shown on the plumbing drawings. There's a bedpan cleanser called out on the architectural plans. There's no plumbing provisions for it. This is the cost to deal with that. It's roughly $26.45. Skipping over 191, 192 is to wrap up the community center Roughen. I mentioned working this weekend, this coming Saturday. That is so that's earmarked under COP 192 to deal with that. I'm sorry. This is the Saturday, the previous Saturday, to deal with the Roughen. 193 is to rework some plumbing within the daycare. We had originally mounted the Roughen piping for the daycare sink. I think it was 31 inches. That was the directive we received. And then after some further research, we were instructed to lower the Roughen height for the sink to 24 inches. And that's the cost earmarked to complete that work, $1,269. We talked about a couple other items that are on the page, but obviously the precautionary measures for COVID-19. We need to continue that discussion. And again, Downs is willing to work with the town on how to come up with the most cost-effective solution to deal with this. But at the very least, we need to take measures now to sanitize the project. It's the right thing to do, and we're going to do that next week. And then the next one, it's not on the list, but I mentioned it, to expedite the electrical rough-in of the gymnasium. We would like to start that work this weekend, this Saturday. Again, it would be a CM contingency item. For eight or nine guys, it's probably worth a couple $1,000s. Again, I think it's money well spent to stay on top of the schedule. We've made some really good progress within the town hall. Now it's just a matter of getting the community center and gym in the same position as the town hall so that we can essentially finish this project as one project. We've been sort of dealing with this project as a phase project when really it was supposed to be one. But as you guys know, dealing with the water main and some of the issues we had in the soil prevented that. But we've been, dealing with that, trying to resequence work, fast track some things. And now we're in a position where we can actually put the community center and gym back on track with the town hall. But I think the only way to do that is to keep these guys expediting work any way we can. So again, backing out the COP 179 of $7,207.05, that brings us right around $4,000 in approximate cost that we're dealing with. However, that doesn't include the COVID-19 precautionary measures, but I won't throw any numbers right now. Let's try to come up with a solution that works for everybody and go from there.
Mr. Chairman, Jeff Barron, I believe Mr. Tomcat requested a verbal approval for 3 of these potential COPs, and did you want to consider that at this time? And this would be 158, 189, and 191.
Yeah,
That's correct.
and 158, right?
Yes, 158, 189, and 191. Do you want to give them a verbal approval or?
This is Mayor Del Buono. Can I just ask a quick question about 189, the flooring in the vault?
Sure.
I'm just wondering, my understanding from the town clerk was that that was something that was discussed with the state and there should not have been any flooring proposed. So I'm wondering why we're considering that.
Well, we when the plans were issued for construction, the plans indicated that we were responsible to provide VCT flooring. So that's why we're seeing this now.
Mr. Chairman, is James still on the call as one of the staff members?
I am.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, could he chime in on this as the town clerk? He might have more information.
Certainly. Go ahead, James.
Thank you, Joe. James Kripinski, Town Clerk. Back in October of 18, we had a meeting at the state level with the Fire Marshal, the State Library, Jim Healy was there from your office, Tom Marcari. And specifically, the vendor themselves for the vault actually indicated in the meeting that they do not allow flooring in the vaults, just for fire protections. So I was a little surprised to see that come up.
At this point, Beth, I don't have an explanation for you. I know where you're going with this. The state says they don't want it. It was spec'd that way. It was an oversight. It has to be done the way the state says it has to be done. If that's something you want to discuss with our team thereafter, certainly, I appreciate your perspective on that.
Okay. Frank, it's Joe Harpy. Frank?
Yeah, I'm here.
I would like to hold the approval on these additional ones to the one item 158. I think that's the urgency one, and then have you do what we usually do and put the others in for review and approval. I just don't want to set a precedent of jumping from those which the committee concentrated on to the other ones that are listed for pending, because they don't have.
All right, well, can I say something, Joe, in response to that? I did mention that 191 has a lead time of about 2 to 3 weeks. So we are waiting for an approval on this. This is simply a material charge to get a bigger panel. And you know, unfortunately, this is to keep the electricians working within the community center.
All right, but how about the bedpan and the cleaner and the transition academy? That can't be an urgency item.
No, it's just the three, 158, 189, and 191. The bedpan is not part of that. But if you guys want to table 189 because you want to talk about the nature of that change, so be it. But 158 is critical, but 191 is critical as well.
So 191 is a must, and the elevator at 158 is a must.
Yes.
Those two. Okay, well, we'll hold off on action on one, on the vault situation until we get clarification on that.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
If I can add some clarity to these particular issues.
Yeah.
If there is a dispute, for instance, in the case of the owner saying, well, we don't think we should pay for this because the architect made a mistake or there's something wrong in the drawings. Just understand that the contractual procedure is such that the contract between the contract with Downs is between the owner and Downs. So if there's a change, and it has to be executed, from a procedural standpoint, the town would still have to make payment to Downs to rectify the issue of your contract with Downs. And then if there's an issue in terms of responsibility or liability regarding that value, that's something that's addressed contractually between the town and the architect. So holding Frank up on a $1,700 decision when we're talking about $28.8 million, I think we can have a conversation about that.
I have to disagree with you because there's a legitimate concern in terms of conversations that were made, and the committee doesn't really have enough information at this point. So it could be $1, and I would hold it up if there isn't adequate information. And I'm not criticizing Downs, but there seems to be a conflict on this, so we're not going to do it.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Yes, Mr. Minor.
Chris Minor, just if Mark was on the line with Colliers, if he could just add this into anything that's in our questionable list on E&O, just to be stacked and tracked.
I am on Mark Schweitzer Colliers. I am on, and it is listed as such.
Okay, and again, I think the overall, and Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, this is literally a material and labor installation of a sealer on the floor, correct?
Yes, it's the credit to no longer provide the VCT flooring offset by the cost to seal the concrete, which is a net add of $1,789.
All right, is there any prep required for the sealer that wouldn't be required for the VCT?
Yeah, there is some level of prep there, yes.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion on the COP 158 for power requirements for the elevator, 15,064.05.
Rod Mortensen, so moved.
Is there a
Ed Martha, second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Done. I'll entertain a motion on change order 191, remove, replace electrical panel for 2,676.
So moved, Rod Mortensen.
Is there a second?
Second, Ed Martha.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those are done.
Okay, so
That'll bring us up to this evening over $58,000 in change orders. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so next item on the agenda is the rejected COPs. This is just a running tally of COPs that have been rejected over the course of the project. So some of these are pretty old. Some of the more recent ones, going back to the last committee meeting that was held last month, the sidewalk along the east side of the gym, we had finalized costs for that, and the town has opted to do that work by themselves if they choose for $32,482.90. That's a cost down to come up with. Extending Mazzicoli Way with the right turn only option. Again, the town has elected to not move forward with that, so we have voided that out of our budget. The operable partition for the daycare, again, that was another decision to void that cost just because of the progress of the work and trying to undo the amount of work that would have to happen to accommodate this. It seemed like it was cost prohibitive to proceed. So that is in the rejected pile. And most recently, we have added the AC for NCTV. There was a directive to relocate one of the existing units. I believe it currently resides in the video control room, move that into engineering, and then supplement that cooling with a new unit. And based on the progress of the work and what's in place and trying to undo that and then run a new line set up to the roof for a new condenser seemed cost prohibitive. Now, Joe, you're probably going to ask me to revisit this.
Well,
And,
before you say that, Joe Harvey, I got an email from a member of NCTV. It says we discussed the load, I guess. I had some discussions with Mr. Carrybar. The load is fine. They put the slip unit in the wrong room. Is it in the control room instead of engineering? Is that a correct statement by this gentleman?
we put the unit in the room that was specified on the contract documents.
Yeah, he's not accusing you of anything. It just says they put the slit unit in the wrong room. Is it in the control room instead of engineering? That's
So
no. If
we have a split system in the video control room within the NCTV suite, and then there's another split system set up in the adjacent room. I believe it's the audio room. And yes, there's nothing currently set up as a split system in the engineering room.
so, that's what this gentleman is saying, that is creating a problem for them, and I don't know if there's anything we can do at this juncture or not to assist them.
Well, what I was going to suggest, Joe, I've offered to revisit this and see if we can at the very least, relocate one of the units. I really don't care which one. He can pick which room.
Okay.
We could provide a proposal to relocate the existing unit, for example, within video control, move that into engineering. It's a matter of extending the piping that's already in the video control room. I believe it's about 35, 40 feet to get from video control to engineering. So at the very least, he'd have a split system in that room if that's what he prefers and doesn't see the need for cooling in video control. And I'll work on that and see what that costs, how that cost comes out, and I'll share that with everybody, and then you guys can tell me how we should proceed.
Okay, so you okay with that?
I am, Anthony.
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. We'll move on. Are you?
Gail Draco, I have a question. And I'm sorry, but regarding the Mazzicoli Way right turn out, I think that actually might have been one of the questions that the woman Barbara was going to be calling about. Is the reason we're holding off on it, is it no longer a safety issue? I forgot what the discussion was.
I was told the new fire marshal didn't have any interest in it, but I don't know that. I mean, I don't know why he said that or what circumstances he said it under, because I have not had a conversation, unless someone else has, directly with the new fire marshal.
Jeff Perrin here. I have not spoken with the fire marshal, but I believe that this is something that the town manager and the town engineer are going to address after the project is over, that the town will be taking care of whatever needs to be done at the end of Mazzicoli Way, either an entrance onto Cedar Street or a road around the entire project, or whatever the option happens to be. But this will be dealt with and addressed by the town after the project is over.
Thank you.
Did I answer your question, Gail?
Right, as long as there's no immediate safety concerns.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Frank, anything else?
Yeah, just to wrap up the agenda, the last item is the requisitions. I mentioned we were roughly 70% complete, or I think it was 66% complete, something like that, through the end of March. And that's based on work in place totaling 18.8 million. That excludes our retainage. That leaves us with roughly 10.4 million to finish up, which does include our retainage. And the current retainage, again, through the end of March, is about 850,000. We've been averaging roughly 2.1 to 2 million per month. Last month was probably our biggest month. We did almost 2.4 million, so we're putting a lot of work in place, and we'll continue to do so as for as long as we can, unless the governor has other things on his mind and he wants to change the executive order. But for now, as you guys know, construction is still considered an essential business, so we will continue to proceed and keep tabs on everybody so we don't lose sight of the finish line.
Okay, we appreciate that, and we appreciate the progress. Mr. Terry, did you have anything you'd like to add, sir?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Next item, consider and take action on fund transfers. Jeff?
Yeah. Yes, I've got a couple of requests. One item is that our independent material testing has come to more than was originally anticipated, and I've got some bills from the current contractor, who is Tri-State Materials Testing Lab, and they exceed the amount of purchase orders that we have, and there are going to be, we've received an estimate of additional testing that needs to be done. So I'm going to request a motion from the committee to transfer $40,000 from the miscellaneous line item, which is account 3110-8230, to the survey and testing line item, which is account 3110-8229. And that would be to cover the additional independent construction testing.
Okay, and that money would be transferred from of our contingency?
No, it would not be charged to your contingency. Again, it's coming out of the miscellaneous
Okay.
line item, which was originally anticipated for moving. We've arranged for moving costs, and they're going to be less than what we anticipated, and that is why there is money available in that particular line item to transfer instead of taking it out of contingency. So it would come out of miscellaneous and go into the survey and testing.
One question, Mr. Chairman, this is Anthony regarding that.
Yes, Anthony, go ahead.
Question is, who made the decision to extend how much testing was needed? Was it a architect initiative? Was it a town initiative? What?
That, as I recall, is the result of the, in part, it's the special inspection report, but also part of it is the architect determines what testing, the architect and the engineer determine what testing is needed during the specification phase.
So was there not enough money in the beginning, or was there additional inspection needed? Possibly an engineer or the architect can answer that question.
There was not enough money in the beginning. We underestimated the amount that would be needed. We hoped we could get by with less, and as it turns out now, there's been more testing than I had anticipated, and that's why I'm requesting the additional money to cover the additional testing that's going to be needed from now to the end of the construction of the building.
And Jeff, that first number was 31182.
Yeah, 31108230, which is miscellaneous. And we're transferring it to, I'm recommending or requesting that it be transferred to the survey and testing line item, which is 31108229.
I'll entertain a motion for the transfer for $40,000.
Make a motion for the transfer.
A second?
Second, Rod Mortensen.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm against, Anthony.
Okay, you're all set, Jeff.
Okay, Anthony, you're opposed?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, the other transfer that's needed is I'm requesting a motion to transfer the $40,438.95 from the owner's contingency for the COPs you approved this evening. And that would be from line item 31109912 to construction. And that is line item 3110-9911. And those do not include that amount does not include the COPs that you approved that were the order of magnitude COPs at the end. I can add those to the total if you wish.
Yes, please.
Is this the same story? There's no offset to the contingency?
No, in this particular case, this would come out of the owner's contingency.
Okay, so we're going to have an adjustment then in that.
Right, it would be the $40,438 for the change orders that were distributed prior to the meeting, and it would be the additional two change orders that were approved this evening.
Okay. So as we stand right now before these adjustments, we have $178,023.90 remaining in the owner's contingency. So we're getting close to getting into five-figure numbers here. From six-figure numbers. You want to give me that amount again for 40,000?
Okay, again, the $40,438.95 was what was distributed prior to the meeting. And then there are the two additional change orders that you approved this evening, which are number 158 and 191.
I mean, I have that. So you want a motion on the 4,338.95 now?
Yes, or if you want me to, if someone indicated that they would like to include the other two change orders as well. And so
Rod Mortensen, we did discuss those and gave a verbal agreement, so it makes sense to include it into that, I feel.
We're talking about the 40,000?
Yes, it'll be 40,000 plus 15,064.05 plus $2,676 even.
Okay. I think in the future, we'd like to see motions in advance on these, because between this and getting into the magnitude, I think we're getting a little messy on our presentation of this stuff, but in any event. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we, Rod Mortensen, I move that we make the transfer of the $40,438.95 plus COP 158 for $15,064.05 plus COP 191 for $2,676.00.
Is there a second?
Second, Ed Murtha.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any other ayes? Motion fails.
Okay, so the motion failed. I'm sorry, who voted opposed?
Committee's intent. Let's take a roll call on the motion made by Mr. Mortensen. Take a roll call, Mr. Brown.
All right. Councilor Badreko,
Yes.
Councilor Minor,
Yes.
Mr. Claffey,
I'm abstaining because I'm a little confused now why we didn't we just take a vote earlier about part of that? That's where I'm confused.
you approved the COPs. Now you're approving the method for paying for them.
Oh, okay. I'm for it. Aye.
Mr. Mortensen,
Yes.
Mr. Murtha,
Yes.
Mr. Woods,
His system stopped working.
okay.
Zoom has stopped working. He just sent me a text.
And my phone is running dead.
Okay, Mr. Harpy?
Yes.
Okay, so you have 6 and one not voting.
Yeah, he can't get through to the system, Mr. Wood.
Don, I see Don in my screen.
Hey, Don, if you push this,
I can hear Don too.
I'll vote yes then, but I
Okay.
don't know what happened. It just went blank.
Okay, I can hear you now. So it's 7-0 then. It's a unanimous vote.
Okay.
And, Frank, you'll make the adjustment to the remaining owner's contingency, correct?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So that's, okay.
Okay, and those are all the requested motions that I have.
All right, thank you. Any other business pertinent to the committee?
Our next Zoom meeting date, do we have one?
Your next regular meeting date would be April 22nd, or if for some reason that is not a meeting date, then the one after that would be May 13th.
Okay.
Same way we're doing it now, Jeff?
I anticipate if this is successful, that this is how we're going to continue on doing them, but to be honest, this was a trial run, so we're going to have to evaluate it, but I think that you're going to be doing some sort of virtual meeting. There will not be any actual meetings until the governor's order is lifted.
Roger that.
I'd like to make a point that this is Anthony. I think this meeting went very well with the circumstances. I think the town employees did a great job getting everything going and allowing us to view it or call in. So I'm for this system moving forward for the 22nd. I appreciate everyone's help. Thank you.
Anyone else? We'll go to public participation again. Don't
Did I
know.
get a chance to take a look at some pictures here?
Is there any,
Yeah, we didn't go through the photo.
queue?
We can if you want, Joe.
I'm just trying to see if there's anybody waiting in the queue for public participation.
We do have one individual, Mr. Harpy, who is in there. It was Barbara. Again, I can't guarantee that we can get her to come back up, but we can try.
Okay. Let's give Barbara a chance and then we'll move on to looking at pictures if you like. Sorry about that, Frank. I forgot about the pictures.
Yeah, so did I. All right.
I can't get
We
her
can go
to
through
unmute.
Get her?
People want to get off the call and go home, go to bed.
Hey, Joe, Ed Martha.
Okay,
Hey, Joe, Ed Martha.
Miss Eddie.
I'm on my phone, so I don't need to see any pictures. And my phone's down to less than 10%. So I'm going to be signing off now.
Thank you, Eddie. Take care.
Hoorah.
Over and
Take
out.
care.
Thanks, Ed.
Frank. Show some pictures and then we'll adjourn.
Yeah, I'm not in control of the pictures. Can we get to is this the first slide?
Frank, this is Paul Boutot. Yes, you're on the first slide right now.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Yeah, so this first picture here, this is the west entry. Again, back up a little bit. These photos were taken a few days ago, so we've actually made some more progress on this area. We poured concrete there. That's where the main entry will go. That's looking at the west side of the town hall. You see a couple holes in the brick to the left and right of the main entry. That's where the flagpole brackets are going. That's where the flagpoles will hang. I'm sorry, my mistake. Those holes are for the steel to support the main entry. The flagpoles actually go above those holes that you really can't see in this photo. Next slide, please. All right, here's a shot of the community center, looking at the west face of the community center. Again, a few days ago, I think this was maybe even taken on Friday of last week. Buttoning up the envelope of the community center, putting in the black frames you see there. That's the aluminum storefront system that is typical around the perimeter of the community center. Next slide. All right, here's a shot, almost a finished product now of the town hall that faces Cedar Street. If you look at the top, what appears to be crown molding, that is cornice that has been placed around the entire perimeter. You can see above that the roof membrane just temporarily flapped over because we are dealing with that change that was approved tonight for the metal to fasten the fascia. So we'll get that going. We'll probably see fascia in the next few weeks. And that'll finish off the top of the town hall.
Hey,
And we've
Frank,
got somebody in the background there glazing the windows, getting the windows sealed in on the outside of the building.
Hey,
Yes,
Frank.
hello.
Yeah, Frank, this is Beth again. I'm just going to ask a question because a member of the public asked me. When looking at those windows, someone is telling me that the top ones are upside down compared to the bottom ones. I just wanted you to clarify that for me.
That is the
because
way,
the little window is on the top on the bottom and on the bottom on the top, if that makes sense, is the question.
No,
That is
that's
the way
the
to-
way it was
No, that-
designed.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay. Thanks for pointing that out. I didn't notice that before. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so that is our lovely generator. Don't get alarmed because that is just a temporary location. Unfortunately, that will reside there until we take down the existing town hall. So that currently sits just outside the town manager's office along the east side of the building. Next slide, please. Okay, that's a shot of the connector. That entrance there in the photo, that gets you into the food pantry area. And human services, you have two separate entrances there. The one to the far left would be human services, and the one on the right side would be the food pantry. And then outside of that entry will be a concrete patio where trucks will be able to back up and deliver food. Slide, please. Okay, so here's a shot of the gym protruding out from the connector along the east side of the site. Again, we are further along at this point. This photo was taken late last week. The masons have actually now wrapped the brick around the bump out, moving further down towards Garfield Street at this point. Next slide, Paul, please. And now we're wrapping around the bump out. Now we're looking at the community center on the south face. Again, you see the two openings. It looks like you're going into a black hole. Those openings that now have aluminum storefront, and they're getting sealed in this week. Next slide, please. Here's just a close-up. This is the brick that's basically left to do that the masons are working on now. The darkish color beyond the brick there, that's the air vapor barrier system. And you see the white boards in the background with the black caulk joints. That sheathing has now been wrapped with air vapor barrier system. As soon as the mason is done finishing the brick to completely wrap the gym with brick, we'll move on to that white section. That gets cast stone. We'll be working on that in the next couple weeks. Next slide. So now we're standing inside the gymnasium, looking at the windows. Pretty expansive gym. 2 high school basketball courts will be housed inside this gymnasium. We've got a mason crew rubbing down the CMU inside the gym. We're going to have painters in here pretty soon prepping the block for paint. And you can see the slab is all set. Plenty of space in there for guys to lay down material, which works out well because the community center is a pretty tight space. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're standing inside the community center. This is looking down the hallway towards the town hall. You can see we've got a lot of the framing done in this photo. Now we have all the framing done at this point. Inside those rooms off that corridor to the left, you have the daycare and the transition academy. Okay, next slide. And this is just another viewpoint in the community center. This is looking down the hallway now on the south side of the community center. You look all the way down the hall, you can see the doorway at the end that exits out onto the gymnasium stairwell. And to the right off of this hallway, you've got the Parks and Rec kitchen, you have the art room, and you have the multi-rooms. Next slide. There's a snapshot of one of the gang bathrooms on the first floor. And at this point, we already have the floor tile down. Again, this was taken late last week, but the guys have a pretty good jump on it. They got the floor tile down in both gang bathrooms already, and the showers are in, and those are ready to go. Next slide. Okay, so now we're standing in the grand hall. You can see the ceiling soffits on the flank both sides of the hallway. In the middle is where we've got that metal ceiling system. That's material that we're currently waiting for. Hopefully in the next couple weeks, we'll see that on site. And then on the left side of the hallway where you've got framing and you've got the wood framing barricading that opening, that's going to be the future home of the elevator. Next slide, please. Okay, that's Rich from Firelock. He was wrapping up the vault door last week. He is now demobilized. We said goodbye to Rich. He is going back to Pennsylvania to hopefully get with his family because they're worried about him. And he wrapped up. Now we'll get inside and we'll start working on the inside of the vault. Okay, next photo. So now we're standing inside the council chambers. You can see we've got a lot of the sheetrock done, taped. That gets a level 5 finish, which is like a baby smooth finish to receive wall covering. And cleaned it up pretty good. It's It's ready for wall covering almost. We've got a little bit of ceiling work left to do in there at this point, and then final finishes. Okay, next slide. Paul, you there? Okay, now we're on the second floor. This is a typical, I believe this is just a typical hallway. This is pretty much how it looks as you walk around the perimeter of the town hall. We've got the grid in. You can see permanent light fixtures on, and we got a first coat of paint, like I mentioned before. We've got laborers coming in this weekend. We've been cleaning every weekend to make sure we try to maintain a clean site. Okay, yeah, not sure what happened with that other photo. I thought we squeezed one of the hallways. All right, so this next photo is just a typical cabinet setup in the town hall. This is second floor. I believe this is a typical, looks like a kitchen setup. And our carpenters, again, made some good headway. We've got all the cabinets pretty much done on the second floor. We've got like 1 or 2 kitchen setups left. We've got 1 kitchen in human services left to do, but he's up on the 3rd floor setting cabinets the rest of the week. All right, next slide, please. All right, just a close-up shot of another bathroom on the 2nd floor. That's a single bathroom. Again, guys are now focused on finishing the 1st floor, and then they'll be up to the 3rd floor to start attacking tile up there. Next slide. That's just a shot of the top of the stairwell. That is the stairwell that is off of the grand hall. We have the ceiling done. We actually have the lights in now at this point, and ready to close it up. Next slide. That's Tiku. That's our painter. He's been responsible for painting the entire building. Worked with him for a number of years. Great guy. And he's standing on the 3rd floor. That's the Board of Ed. He, at this point, he's pretty much finished the 1st coat on all the offices up on the 3rd floor. Okay, next slide. That's just a typical office space. And this is more of the Board of Ed. Again, it has a full coat of paint on now. A lot of that stuff you see there is gone because it's getting installed. Some of that ceiling grid material, that material has been placed, and it's really coming along now. All right, that's all I had. Does anybody have any questions on the photos?
Okay, Frank, looks great. Moving right along, getting her done. Okay,
Yes,
I'll
sir.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second, Rod Mortensen.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Good evening.
Good evening.
See you guys. Take care.
Brady Bunch style.
Thanks, Frank.